What a great day. I forgot to mention, this is up here because we're supporting Puerto Rico with our, not only with thoughts and prayers, but with very good action. So if you want to be a part of that and bring bars or water or whatever, let us know. I personally am donating all the proceeds from my book that was sold the Sunday right after the hurricane. And I also just put a message on the New Thought channel. We were contacted and asked if I would put a message on the New Thought channel about other communities supporting Puerto Rico. So I just did that this morning. So that should go out this week on the New Thought channel. So in terms of me personally, I'm not sure what else I could do, but I'm very willing and happy to do everything I can to support and bring awareness and consciousness to live this teaching of oneness that we talk about. Amen? So that's one of the things we're doing, and we invite you into it on whatever level feels appropriate to you. We are getting right into the message today. There's lots to look at and lots to say and lots to be received. I feel so strongly about the message I'm bringing today in terms of its impact, both in my life and in yours as well, because I know if it's impacted me, the potential of it impacting you is tremendous. But we're in Florida, and it's hot, so I'm going to just take this off. It might have looked good at the beginning, but that's over. We're getting serious. You all know that I feel meditation is extremely important, and what happened in the writing of the book is something I've never exactly experienced before, where I was so inward in my process and in the meditation that even though I'd be up being out in the world and being a mom and being a partner and a family member and all of that, I was having this experience where I felt like I was living in a spiritual hologram, that I was here now, but I could feel way out here and I could feel way back here. And I was going in and out of times of meditation and writing of the material. And in this particular chapter, chapter 3, is called the Law of Minimization. And that title came exactly from a meditation experience when I was going in and just having my time in meditation, and this phrase just floated in. And so I decided to write it down, the Law of Minimization. I really took it seriously because I'd never heard of the law of minimization. Have you ever heard of it? Because it's not a thing. I mean, I looked up, I didn't know anything about the law of minimization, never heard of it. And then as I sat with it for a couple days, I didn't mention it to anybody at first. Then I realized that this friend of mine had taught me about it months before in learning to trim and care for our roses. We have this tiny little rose garden, and I realized she taught me about it. When I finally told my partner about it, she said, "Have you looked up the law of minimization?" I said, "Where?" She said, "Just look it up on the internet and see, what's there." And so I found something called the law of minimum, and the law of minimum is actually known in agricultural science. It's also known as Liebig's law. And it wasn't popularized until the year 1840. So this goes back, but it has never been, that I know of, related to the spiritual world, and that's what I'm going to do today. The law says this, and I may have to read it twice because I'm still reading it over to get the full effect of it and the impact. It says, yield, so this is about agricultural science, right? It's about growth of plants. It says, yield is proportional to the amount of the most limiting nutrient, whichever nutrient it may be. Should I read it one more time? It's wordy. We'd say down south, it's wordy, ain't it? Yield is proportional to the amount of the most limiting nutrient, whichever nutrient may be, which basically means growth is controlled not by the total number of resources, but by the scarcest nutrient. Okay, are you with me so far? All right, so once I realized that law was called the law of minimum, and I had gotten the law of minimization, I made a decision that the law, as I'm speaking of it, is going to relate to the spiritual and even physical world, what the law of minimum is to the plant world. So can we agree that that's the name of the law as we go through that? The law of minimization, because you're going to see how it applies. So I've discovered something in my work with roses. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing I realized is rose thorns can be quite prickly. Got to be careful. You remember a couple of weeks ago when my hand was swelled up? That's how we say it down south, swolled up. There's a couple things I learned about roses. The first thing is, roses left to their own devices don't grow buds. They grow what's called the cane and the leaves first. And if you went and saw a wild rose, for instance, there would probably be no buds at all, or if you did, they'd be very small, because rose bushes want to make buds, but all the energy actually goes to making the canes and the leaves first. So if you want to have a well-tended garden, you've got to tend it every day, because there's enormous amount of energy available to make the bud, but as long as that energy is going a lot of different directions, it cannot make the beautiful bud. You're with me right now? So there's this enormous amount of energy available, but to get to that, some things have got to be like trimmed back. The energy's going out. If the energy's going this way, it can't grow. Right? So I've simplified the law for my understanding. And as I understand it, for me, it's very simple. Keep what you need. Everything else gets in the way of that. Okay, keep what you need. So this may sound simple, but its impacts are profound in your life. Profound. I want my life to look like that rose. And as long as my attention is going everywhere, it cannot do that. So this law, for me, got down into literally my purpose. This thing has gone in every aspect of my life, has been impacted by this law in a way that I could not have imagined before learning about it. So I want to kind of help take you through. I want to take you through some of this so that you can track with me and see how you can relate it. So, in other words, there's a primary function you're here to fulfill. What's extraneous? What's your limiting nutrient? So if we took me for an example, and I applied it to my own life in the book, just because I like that rather than being theoretical, because I don't know what anybody else is thinking, but I know what I'm thinking. So I know my purpose really is about being a spiritual leader, and I know it's about ministering here and about also reaching more people. If I'm going everywhere else and doing everything else, my purpose cannot be known. Amen? Right? Stay with me. So if my purpose is to be a spiritual leader, but I'm running here and running there and doing this and doing that has nothing to do with my purpose, you see how my purpose can't grow and be known in the world? Right? Because I'm doing all these extraneous things. As a matter of fact, me going away, I was just away for the last few days. I went and did some personal spiritual work. I went away for a few days of spiritual renewal. And it was really important for me to do that because yesterday was a big church event, and I never miss big church events, obviously, because, I'm the senior minister, and you don't miss those things. But I had actually made a mistake in my calendar, and I had not written down the Pride Parade in my calendar. I don't know why, I just missed it. So I spoke to some of the leaders here and said, I'm going to be gone, but I know I can depend on you. It was so wonderful to have somebody as solid as Nora that I could say, Nora, I'm going to be gone. Can you be my lead? I know I can depend on you. It will get done even if I'm not here. And she said, I've got your back. You go. There was not even a moment of hesitation. And what happened is went on my journey, and this often happens when I go away on spiritual retreat, there were all these signs along the way I was supposed to go, because there was a little part of me that was still feeling a tug to be back here. Have you ever had that, where you're moving forward, you know it's yours to do, but there's this like inner tug? So, and I remember when I made my plans, I made a plan with this rental car place, and it was a place I'd never heard of. So as I'm getting there, I'm thinking, I really hope there's a car, at all, and I hope it runs, So anyway, so I get up to this place, and it's like, the place looks really cool. And I get up to the desk. It's finally my turn, and the woman says, well, I'm sorry. And I said, hold still, hold steady. And she said, I'm sorry, but you get an upgrade. The car you wanted is not here. I said, no problem. And so she hands me a key to a brand new Mercedes sports car. So, and I said, okay, Spirit, that's sign number one. So then I go to my place, and I was real proud of myself for getting a place for not very much money, because the church pays. That's a part of my contract. The church will pay my travel and that to go. So I had gotten this place, and it was a lot cheaper than a hotel, and there's a lot of water in Seattle, so I decided I'd stay on this little boat. I don't know why I think of these things. And I got to the boat, and I said, this is not cool. I was boiling water to stay warm. So I finally called. I said, look, and she said, I'm sorry. I need to upgrade you. I said, no problem. Sign number 2. She said, the boat next door is perfect, 2-story, gorgeous view of the water, and all is well. All is well. So I'm like, okay, I'm clearly where I need to be so I can be about my purpose. All these other things were getting my energy, and Spirit said, here's your upgrade. So I'm saying this because it might be time for you to upgrade. And we want to be able to receive God's good at whatever level we're ready to receive it, right? So all of the spiritual principles I'm giving you in this book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Release, are all of the laws in one way or another are about releasing those things that get in the way of your divine purpose so that you can be open to receive the good God has for you. Doesn't that sound like a good idea? So if we're beginning to do that, we have to kind of get clear, we need to get clear about what our soul actually wants. And then that's an important question to be asking. What does my soul want? And when I say, what does your soul want? Your soul doesn't want a new car, really. Like, the upgrade is cool. But no, what does your soul want? This is about purpose. What does my soul? This is about expression, right? How are you wanting to express and create in the world? What does your soul want? So that's a question you might want to be in. Ask the person next to you, what does your soul want? Now, the truth is, look at him and say this, you already know the answer. We're laughing because we know that's true. We already know the answer, right? We know the answer. So I'm going to encourage you to work with that question and not to overthink it. And here's why it's important to work with the question. So you can start applying that law as I spoke about it to your life. Until you know what your purpose is, you don't know what to remove. Until you know what you're here to do, you don't know what's getting in the way because you're going this way and that way and this way and that way and doing everything that everybody else wants you to do. But what do you want to be doing? What do you want to be creating? What is your life about in the world? Then you can look at your most limiting nutrient. Right? So for me, it might be time, it might be energy, it might be focus. So that's important for me to look at. Where's my energy going if not to my purpose? Because if it's not going to my purpose, chances are it's actually blocking that. Right? No, I cannot flower. I cannot grow into the soul I'm meant to be. I cannot bloom because I haven't paid attention to the limiting nutrient. It doesn't matter all the good things I'm doing. And I'm sure all the things you're doing are good. It's not about that. But it's about saying, what are the things that I'm doing that I don't need to be doing so I can be about my purpose? Now, the deeper part of this is as you begin to do this work, you're going to be working with your soul on a new level probably, and it's going to go deeper. I was so impressed with the 9 a.m. people and the stories, how deep they were already going with some of these questions. Because as you start doing this, you're going to have to move into a no judgment zone of the guidance that Spirit brings you about the direction of your life. The trust that you're going to have to embody is going to be tremendous. These teachings are not for the people who just want to read a spiritual book every now and then. This is for real spiritual grown-ups that want to do soul work, what I'm telling you. It's about learning to be in a no judgment zone from the guidance God gives you in terms of direction for your life. And sometimes, it can be real scary to move into new territory, right? So it's about learning to work with that limiting nutrient, and when God tells you to release something, to release it and move forward. So that's the place we want to get to. So say with me, release and move forward. Release and move forward. And remember that your soul lives on the level of both the here and now reality, but it also is connected to eternity. And your ego knows nothing. Say with me, my ego knows nothing. Together, my ego knows nothing. And I'm talking about the spiritual ego now. I'm not in psychological terms. Right? The ego knows nothing. The ego does not understand spiritual guidance. As a matter of fact, fights it every time. Right? So this is about beginning to operate from a higher, it's both higher and deeper at the same time, consciousness, where Jesus lived from, called fourth dimension consciousness. So it's going to require some reflection on your part. It's not just, okay, I'm going to do these 3 steps and everything's going to be okay. It's going to be you being in dialogue with the very soul of your being, with the universe itself. But before you do anything, remember that God's will for you is good. This is the subtext of everything I'm saying. God's will for me is good. Say that with me. God's will for me is good. God's will for me is good. So that is underlying everything I'm saying. So that as you get these guidances to release something or move forward in a way you weren't quite sure about, you have to realize that this voice that is wanting good for you is the very universe itself that has nothing but good planned for you. Hear me on that. So what we see right now in our culture, I think, I want to relate this a little to the physical even more, but what we see in our culture right now, and I've known so many people over the years that have really come to the idea we have too many things, too much stuff. Does anybody agree with me on that? So we need to begin to even though we have too much, we still keep buying. Anybody else know what I mean by that? And so I'm going to give you a real benign example of a way to apply this law, and so far it's applied to every person I've ever talked to about it, and we have a good laugh because everybody seems to hold on to things that they don't need anymore. And the idea, if we apply this law to our physical world, then if we don't need it, it's what? It's getting in the way of our growth. Right? If you don't need it, it's getting in the way of your growth. It's that simple. So all of us have things in our lives, physical things, and all of us have clothes we don't wear anymore, don't we? We have fat clothes and thin clothes. And then we have, come on, and then we have clothes we actually wear. Amen? Okay. Say, bring it. Okay, fat clothes, thin clothes, we also have pretty shoes that don't fit. And then the ones we actually wear, right? So every morning we start the day and we look at these things and we say, my God, I can't believe I was ever that big. And then we go here and we say, oh, I can't believe I was ever that thin. And then we say, okay, I'm going to wear this. So we've already, before we've even looked at shoes, we've started the day in total shame and guilt and how did I get here? We've already gotten in our own way of a real easy start to the day. You see how that is? I know this is a funny example, but can we not all relate? Right? And so there's some hidden belief behind it that there's not going to be enough when I need it. You see that? So it's a real hidden belief. And maybe it's an attachment to the old ways. See, so everything in our outer life is a reflection of the inner life. So as you start to move things in the outer life, that shifts. When you start to change things in the inner life, that shifts your outer. So the scriptures say, as above, so below. As within, so without. So there's not one or the other. One is the other. as you start to work with some of this. So, you might start asking yourself some questions as you start going through things like, have I worn this in the last year? Is this the way I want to show up in the world? Does this accurately reflect the way I want to present myself in the world to other people? Is this who I am? Is this representing an old life that I'm badly trying to release, and yet every day I look at it over and over and over again, and I am stuck to who I used to be rather than who I am right now? So the present is here wanting you to notice it, but you're so stuck in the past or off in the future, the present can offer you nothing. Amen? Amen. So these are hard questions to be asking, really, because they require some action on your part. Then we move to other physical things in our lives. The things in the home, the things that you cook with, or the car you drive. What's so amazing about this law, I have to just pause and say, if we practice this, everybody would have enough. Because we wouldn't be holding on to things that we no longer needed. They would be out in circulation, which of course brings what? More abundance and goodness. Remember, keep what you need. Everything else gets in the way of that. Keep what you need. Everything else gets in the way of that. So as we release things, we can become more, more conscious, more able to receive, more present to what we do have, and then be able to live, into our purpose even more. I'm needing to get confirmation from Spirit before I. Okay. I really want to talk about something. It goes even deeper. I wouldn't do this with every group, but you guys can do it. Everything in our world has energy. This hat, these gloves, this rose. Okay. And when we're living from the ego, it's about, do I want these things? But there's a deeper, more, the energy that is in these things has a desire also. And even if you like them, they may want to go somewhere else. In the indigenous teachings, there's a tradition called the giveaway, which is centered around the idea that everything belongs, everything is communal, right? Everything is communal. So there's this understanding that if I have something and I see that Cindy needs it, when I give it to Cindy, it's still mine. Nice. It's still mine. I just see Cindy using it for now. Yeah. Cindy says, I may as well own it. She gave it to me. Actually, that's my partner, so no, just kidding. I can't give her stuff away. Okay. So, but you can actually have an energy dialogue with things because God is in this thing. God is in this thing. God is in this thing. So the things we think are just things are actually energy. They hold a specific vibration. And often, even if you like it, the thing will say, I want to go elsewhere. So then you have to trust that. And in the tradition of the giveaway, it's really interesting because as you give, you never lose. Because everyone you give to is you. It's the practice of oneness that we say we believe. And by the way, everybody in here at one time was indigenous. It just means belonging to the land. So if you're German or Norwegian, you're still indigenous. You don't have to, you don't have to pretend you're an Indian. If you're Puerto Rican, yes, the Taino people, right? If you're black, you have connections. We're all indigenous. So this isn't something new to your soul. It's just something to reawaken in your soul. So the challenge of dealing with this law is when you are asked to give away something you love. The things that we don't love anymore or like are old about ourselves, that usually we can do that pretty easily. But the things that we love is where the real challenge comes in for the soul. So there was a time I'll tell you about. So several years ago, I was working at Unity of Phoenix, and I was so blessed to have the job there. It was a job I'd really asked for and prayed about. And shortly after I got to Phoenix to work there, I got really ill. I had been out horseback riding in 116-degree weather, and I had a stomach issue I didn't know about, and I had a really bad heat stroke. And, I almost died. And the doctor, said to me, you need to, take 6 weeks off work. And I was like, I'll go to work tomorrow, which I did, which was a really dumb idea. Because I'd sit at my desk and I'd have to prop myself up like this to sit up at my desk because I was so fatigued. So it was a really tough time, and any extra energy I had was going to be with the horses because I felt like it was the one thing I could do for me. Well, in my spiritual work during that time, I was really in prayer about what needed to be released because I really wanted to be able to heal myself, my body, and my job was so demanding that I remember when I just went in to pick up my cell phone, I was supposed to just pick up my phone. I was there for 4 hours counseling people in crisis because no minister had been there, and everybody was like, oh, a minister's here and the floodgates open. And so I was on duty, so I didn't see any way to not be there. So I was really conflicted and trying to heal at the same time, and nobody in the congregation knew I was sick. Even during meditations on Sunday morning, I would stand at the podium because I was swaying. I was so sick, So I was really conflicted. And when I finally got this, it came to me in prayer that I needed to release my connection with horses. I said to God, I'm not going to do it. And but it would not leave this idea. And I thought, this thing that I love that's bringing me, it's like my one place of joy. Why would God ask me to release it? I don't understand. So I did the practice I'm telling you about, and I would take each item and I would hold it and say, are you ready to go? And it would say yes, and I would go. And I did okay, I'll do one glove at a time, It was, and I only had a couple of little things left. And at the time I was volunteering at this writing center where we did writing for kids and adults with disabilities. So I took all this bags of stuff in, and I sent my saddle back to my old teacher that had gifted me with that, and everybody was saying, are you sure? And inside I'm going, I was saying, yes. I said, oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm glad for the kids to have it, and I left, and I got bawling out the door, like, ah. But I'll tell you what happened. All that energy that was going to horses suddenly was going to my healing. And since I did not take time off work, every spare minute I needed was to heal, to rest, to rejuvenate, and it was really an important turning point for me in my career and in my following my soul. I was so into horses that it may have been taking me away from what I really needed to do. And it took 2 years before I got the guidance to work with horses again. And it was actually right after I moved here. So, I gave it up, but as I got it back even better with more balance. My ego mind didn't understand that kind of guidance, but my soul knew way ahead of what I needed. So all of you have attachments. All of us, myself included, still have attachments to things that are holding us back from our next spiritual step. And remember, God's will for you is good, so whatever that step might be, God is going to source you with all the strength and all the energy and all the support that you need to make it. So the question, that's wanting to work in you is, what needs to be released even that you love so that your purpose can be made known in you? So with that, let's go into a time of meditation where and we'll have the band come up. Why don't you guys... Thank you.